Have you ever wondered why an ancient Egyptian priest would put on the head of a jackal before touching a mummy? I mean, imagine walking into a dark burial chamber over 3,000 years ago. Torches are flickering on the walls. Incense fills the air. A mummy lies on a stone table.
Then someone walks in, not wearing a crown, not wearing armor, but wearing the face of Anubis. If you've seen our previous episodes, you've definitely heard the name Anubis before. And if you're new here, welcome to Art.Timeline. Don't forget to subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. And feel free to check out our earlier videos later, because we dive much deeper into his story there. But for now, here's the short version. Anubis was one of the most important gods in ancient Egypt. He was believed to protect the dead, watch over the mummification process, and guide every soul on its journey to the Hall of Judgment. You'll usually recognize Anubis by his human body and the black head of a jackal. The jackal wasn't chosen randomly. These animals were often seen around cemeteries, so the Egyptians believed Anubis guarded the tombs and kept the dead safe. When a person reached the famous weighing of the heart, Anubis stood right beside the scales, making sure everything was fair. He watched as the person's heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the symbol of truth and justice. If the heart was light enough, the soul could continue on to eternal life. Now here's the creepy part. Was that priest pretending to be Anubis? Or did the ancient Egyptians believe that, for those few moments, Anubis himself was there?
Believe it or not, this isn't something Hollywood invented. Archaeologists have found actual Anubis masks. Ancient tomb paintings show figures wearing them, and Egyptian religious texts help explain why they were used. But the answer is a lot more interesting than most people think. First, we need to clear up a common misunderstanding. Ancient Egyptian priests didn't normally walk around wearing Anubis masks every day. The evidence doesn't support that. What scholars believe is that certain priests wore these masks during specific funerary rituals, especially during mummification and ceremonies connected with preparing someone for the afterlife. So this wasn't everyday clothing. It was ritual clothing. And rituals were taken incredibly seriously.
To understand why the mask mattered, we first need to understand who Anubis actually was. Today, people often call him the god of death. That's not completely wrong, but it leaves out the most important part. Anubis wasn't the ruler of the underworld. That role eventually belonged to Osiris. Anubis was something different. He was the protector of the dead, the guardian of cemeteries, and the god who safely guided the deceased through the first stages of the journey after death. If someone was preparing a body for eternity, Anubis was the god you wanted on your side. According to Egyptian mythology, after Osiris was murdered by Set, it was Anubis who helped restore and wrap Osiris's body. Remember, guys? Because of that story, Egyptians believed Anubis became the divine master of embalming. So every time embalmers prepared a mummy, they weren't just doing a technical job. They were repeating a sacred event that had already happened to Osiris himself. Every mummy was, in a way, following the same path. Now here's where the mask becomes fascinating. When a priest put on the mask of Anubis, most Egyptologists don't think he was simply dressing up. Instead, during the ritual, he was performing the role of Anubis. In Egyptian religion, rituals weren't just symbolic performances. Words had power, images had power, names had power. and ritual actions had power. For the people taking part, the ceremony connected the human world with the divine one. The priest didn't literally become a god, but during the ritual, he acted as Anubis's representative on earth. In other words, he wasn't pretending. He was carrying out the god's role.
And this isn't just a guess based on paintings. Real Anubis masks have actually survived. A few examples are now kept in museums. They're made from materials like painted wood, linen, plaster, or cartonnage. Some even have eye openings, showing they were designed to be worn by a real person. So when we look at those ancient wall paintings today, we're probably seeing an actual ritual that once happened, not just an artistic symbol.
Another interesting detail is that these masks are incredibly rare. Only a handful have survived. That doesn't necessarily mean only a few ever existed. Wood, linen, and organic materials don't survive very well over thousands of years. Still, archaeologists are careful. They don't claim every embalmer wore one, and they don't claim every funeral included one. The evidence simply isn't strong enough for that. Instead, the safest conclusion is this. Some priests, during certain important funerary rituals, wore Anubis masks, and that's exactly what the archaeological evidence supports.
The amazing thing is, 3,000 years later, we can still see those masks. We can still see those tomb paintings. And we can still follow the footsteps of the priests who once stood beside the dead, wearing the face of a god, not because they wanted to scare people, but because they believed that for one sacred moment, the god himself was acting through the ritual. Don't forget to subscribe to us, friends. You make us happy, and you'll also gradually master the realities of art history.